The bottom drawer of the chest stuck a little, and I was glad it did, because the sound it made when it opened was the sound I listened for in my sleep for 41 years. I knew that scrape the way a mother knows her own child's cough. If anyone ever pulled that drawer, I would hear it from any room in the house, and I would have time, not much, but a little, to decide what my face would do. Beneath the folded winter quilts, beneath the spare muslin and the good Sunday apron I never wore, there was a thing that no Amish wife in my district was permitted to keep. And I kept it from the autumn I turned 26 until the morning my husband was lowered into the ground at 67, 41 years. I want you to sit with that number before I go any further. My name is Anna. I was born Old Order Amish in a settlement you would not find on a map, unless you knew already that it was there. I am an old woman now, and this channel, Hannah the Amish girl, is where the things we buried get to come up into the light at last. If the truth about Amish life, the real truth, not the postcard, means something to you, then subscribe and press the like. And in the comments, tell me one thing. Your own family was never permitted to say out loud, I read them. I read every single one, sometimes twice. I want to take you back to the kind of house I kept, because you cannot understand the drawer until you understand the silence around it. I married Eli in the November I turned 20. That was already considered a touch late for a girl in my district. Most were wed at 18 or 19, and my mother had begun to wear a particular tightness around the mouth whenever a wedding was announced. That was not mine. When Eli's intentions became known, that tightness left her face overnight, and I learned something I have never unlearned, that a daughter's worth could be measured in how quickly she was taken off her parents' hands. Eli was a good man. I want that understood from the start, because what I am going to tell you is not the story of a cruel husband. It is the story of a system, and the system did not need cruel men to do its work. Eli was patient with the horses and gentle with the children, and he built that chest of drawers with his own hands the winter before we married, dovetailed the corners so they would last 100 years. He was proud of those corners. He showed my father how they fit. He never once guessed what would live in the bottom of it. Our life was the life every wife in the district lived. Up before 4, the stove, the bread, the milking, the garden, the canning in season, the wash on Monday strung between the house and the barn, church every other Sunday 4 hours on the hard benches, the men on one side and the women on the other. In between, the visiting, the quilting, the funerals, the weddings, the long table set for 30 when it was our turn to host. My hands were never still. That was a kind of mercy, the never being still. A woman whose hands are full has less room to notice what her heart is doing. Here is what people on the outside do not understand about a life like mine. It was not unhappy. I need you to hear that, because the easy story is the one where everything was misery, and that was not my life. There was real sweetness in it. The smell of the orchard in May, the way the whole district moved together like one body when a barn went up, my children small and warm and asking their endless questions. I would not hand all of that back, but woven through every good thing was a rule, and the rule was this: a woman keeps nothing of her own, not money she earned, not a thought she did not share, not a single object that belonged to her and to no one else and answered to no one's purpose but her own. That was the sin the drawer held, not a wicked thing, a private thing. Let me tell you how it began. I was 26, and we had buried my younger sister, Mary, in the spring of that year. She was 22. She had taken a fever after her third child came too early, and there had been no doctor called until it was far too late, because in our district the calling of an English doctor was a thing done slowly, reluctantly, after the prayers had been given their chance first. I held her hand at the end. She did not say anything that the storybooks would call last words. She said, "Anna, who will remember the small things?" And then she was gone. And within a week, the district had closed over her absence the way water closes over a dropped stone. No photographs. We were forbidden those. No grave marker beyond the plainest stone with the plainest dates. Within a month, it was as though Mary had been a rumor. And I understood, standing in my kitchen one ordinary Tuesday with my hands in the bread dough, that everyone I had ever loved would vanish exactly that completely. That I myself would vanish. That a life could be lived in full. Every joy, every grief, every small private thought a woman ever had at 4 a.m. over a cold stove, and leave behind nothing but a name in the church record and a stone with 2 dates on it. So that night, after Eli slept, I went down to the kitchen, and I took a stub of pencil and the brown paper that the dry goods came wrapped in, and I wrote down one thing, one sentence about Mary, the way she hummed off-key when she thought no one could hear. I wrote it down so that it would exist somewhere outside of my own head, which I had begun to understand was the only place left in the entire world where Mary still hummed. That brown paper was the first thing in the drawer, and here I have to stop, because what happened over the next 11 Sundays I cannot carry in 20 minutes. There are things this recording cannot hold: the names, the counting, the drawer, the dress I kept for 27 years. 3 years ago I wrote it all down, every page of it, and the book is called The Sundays. The link is in the description and in the pinned comment. If your own family kept its silences, you may find some of yours in there too. Now, let me tell you what a forbidden thing actually is in a world like mine, because I think the outside imagines something far more dramatic than the truth. A forbidden thing was not a weapon or a poison. The thing the district feared most was never danger. It was self. Anything that said I am a person separate from this family, this church, this man, was the true contraband. A mirror larger than a hand was discouraged, because a woman should not study her own face. A diary was unthinkable, because a diary is a room with a door, and a woman was not permitted a door. Money of her own was the gravest of all, because money is the one thing that can carry a person out the gate. I knew a woman 2 districts over who had been found to have set aside egg money in a tin behind the flour, and what was done to her was never spoken of directly, only in the way the older women lowered their voices and changed the subject when her name came up. She was made an example without anyone ever saying her name, and the lesson aloud in the same breath. That is how the silence taught, never by instruction, always by the cold space that opened around the one who had stepped wrong. So you understand now what it meant that page by page, over the years, that drawer filled. I wrote at night, always by the stove, always with the door angled so I could see the stairs. I wrote on dry goods paper and on the backs of seed catalogs, and once, for a whole winter, in the white margins of an old almanac, because that was all I had. I wrote down the small things because Mary had asked who would remember them, and I had decided, standing in the bread dough, that the answer would be me. The cost of the year the corn failed, and what we ate instead. The names of every baby I helped bring into the world, because I was often the hands that caught them before the midwife came. What my children said before they learned to say what they were supposed to say. The Sundays my faith felt like a coat that did not fit, which I could tell no living soul, because doubt was not a thing a woman was permitted to own either. And I will tell you the thing I have told almost no one. There were Sundays I wrote down what I wanted, not what I needed, not what the family needed, what I, Anna, wanted, for no reason but that I wanted it. To see the ocean, which I had heard of and never seen. To sleep one single morning past 4. To be asked just once by anyone what I thought about something that was not the wash or the weather or the will of God. Those pages frightened me more than any of the others because those were the pages that proved I was exactly the thing the district feared. A separate person. A door with a room behind it. There was a dress, too. I will tell you only this much here. It was not plain, and it was not mine to have, and I kept it folded at the very bottom for 27 years. And the story of how it came to me is one of the things I could not fit into 20 minutes. Eli was sick for a long time at the end. 2 years of it the slow kind, where the strong man you married becomes a thing you lift and turn and feed by the spoon. And in those 2 years, I will be honest with you, I was certain he would find the drawer. He kept to the house now. He did not sleep. There were whole afternoons he sat by the window while I worked, and his eyes followed me, and I thought, this is when it comes out. This is the year of my life that ends with him knowing. He never opened it. I do not know to this day whether that was because he never thought to, or because, somewhere underneath the rules that ran us both, he chose not to. I have decided to believe it was a choice. It cost me nothing now to believe the kinder thing, and it lets me love him a little more across the distance of all these years. He died on a morning in October. The district came, the way the district always comes. That part of us I will never speak against, the way a whole community arrives at your door with food and hands and presents and asks nothing in return. They washed him and they sat with me, and they lowered him into the ground with the plainest stone and the 2 dates, and within a month, the way it always went, the water closed over the place where Eli had been. But I had the drawer, and for the first time in 41 years I opened it in daylight, with the door wide, and no part of me listened for the stairs. I left the following spring. I was 67 years old, and people ask me how a woman that age finds the door after a lifetime, and the truth is plainer than they want it to be. I'd been finding it for 41 years, 1 page at a time. The drawer was the door. I had simply not yet walked through it. In the English world, I learned words I had lived my whole life without. Autonomy, the right to a self. They told me in a quiet office that what I had done with that pencil and that brown paper, alone at the stove with the door angled toward the stairs, was not the small mad thing I had always believed it was. They told me it had a name, and the name was survival. A woman 2 outsiders said had kept herself alive on the outside, while her body did 41 years of work on the inside. I do not look back in bitterness. I want to say that as plainly as I can, because the easy ending is the angry one, and anger was never the truest thing in me. The Amish world gave me a faith I still carry in my own rebuilt way, and a community that showed up for every birth and every burial, and hands that still know the work. But there is no scripture that requires a woman to disappear. There is no commandment that says the small things must not be remembered. There is no God I can believe in now who made a person with a whole interior life and then asked her to keep it in a drawer with the door angled toward the stairs. If you grew up in a world where keeping anything of your own was called pride, I see you. If you ever hid a small true thing in a drawer, in a tin, in the only private corner they left you, I see you, and you were not sinful, and you were not mad. You were keeping yourself alive the only way the world allowed. Mary asked who would remember the small things. For 41 years, the answer was a drawer that scraped when it opened. Now the answer can be you. Tell me in the comments, what did your family forbid that was never dangerous at all? Tell me the small thing you would have written down. And if you want the rest of it, the whole of what these minutes could not hold, it is waiting. The Sundays. What 20 minutes cannot hold? The link is in the description and the pinned comment. The morning is yours if you decide it is.